People will always have something to say about you. They'll judge the way you walk, the way you talk, the way you dress, the choices you make, the dreams you chase, and even the ones you haven't yet dared to admit to yourself. You will be criticized if you try, and you will be criticized if you don't. If you succeed, they'll envy you. If you fail, they'll laugh, and if you stay somewhere in the middle, they'll still find something to point out. That's the nature of human beings. Some will always need to project their own insecurities onto others. The real question is this: are you going to live according to their noise, or are you going to choose the silence that allows you to hear your own voice? Most people never stop to realize how much of their life has been shaped by the opinions of others. They buy clothes because they're afraid of standing out. They pick a career path because it looks respectable, not because it stirs anything inside their soul. They hold back their thoughts, not because those thoughts lack value, but because they fear how they'll be received. That's how entire lives are wasted, bent under the weight of expectations that don't even belong to them. And so, the tragedy unfolds. A man or a woman who was born to carve a unique path ends up walking the exact same road as everyone else, all to avoid the discomfort of criticism. But here's the truth: the people whose opinions you're worried about are not carrying your burdens. They won't be the ones to suffer if you live inauthentically, and they won't be the ones to reap the rewards if you take bold steps toward your dreams. Their opinions cost them nothing, but if you give them power, they could cost you everything. And so, the most powerful decision you can make is to silence the noise, not by fighting it, not by debating it, but by turning your focus inward toward the work that matters, the growth that counts, and the purpose that pulls you forward. It doesn't mean you close your ears to wisdom. Constructive feedback has its place, and truth spoken with love is rare and valuable. But most of the noise you hear isn't wisdom, it's projection, it's envy disguised as advice, it's small mindedness dressed up as concern. And when you begin to see that clearly, you realize it doesn't deserve space in your mind. What deserves space is the still, quiet voice inside you, the one that knows when you're lying to yourself, the one that pushes you to do better, the one that reminds you of who you could become if you stopped being afraid. Think about it. Every great thinker, every innovator, every person who ever created something remarkable was at some point ridiculed or dismissed. They were told it couldn't be done, that it was impossible, that it was foolish. But they didn't let that stop them. They kept building, they kept speaking, they kept writing, they kept trying, and eventually the world adjusted. The same people who mocked them ended up admiring them, not because the critics suddenly became wiser, but because results speak louder than noise ever could. If you want to live a life that matters, you must be willing to look past the jeers, the whispers, and the sneers. You must cultivate the strength to walk your path even when it feels lonely, even when no one else understands it yet. Because one day, if you remain true to yourself, the same voices that once tried to drown you out will fall silent, not because they've disappeared, but because your actions have rendered their words irrelevant. So let them talk, let them judge, let them misunderstand. You are not here to win their approval. You are here to fulfill your potential. And the moment you finally choose to silence the noise of their opinions, you'll hear something far more powerful, the sound of your own life finally moving forward. Your mind is your most valuable resource, and yet most people treat it as if it were disposable. They give it away cheaply to gossip, to endless arguments, to toxic relationships, to social media comparisons, to the constant chatter of people who don't even matter. They wake up in the morning already exhausted, not because the day has beaten them, but because they've been leaking energy into things that hold no real value. And then they wonder why they feel stuck, why they feel drained, why no progress seems to be happening. It's not that they lack ability or intelligence or even opportunity. It's that their mental energy is scattered across too many meaningless battles. The truth is, you only have so much to give. Every thought, every ounce of focus, every spark of motivation you spend is an investment. If you spend it wisely, your life compounds upward. If you spend it recklessly, you end up with nothing left for the things that actually matter. That's why protecting your mental energy isn't a luxury. It's survival. Without it, even the best opportunities pass you by because you're too distracted, too depleted, too wrapped up in things that shouldn't even be in your orbit. Consider how often people waste their mental strength trying to prove themselves to others. They get caught in arguments online, desperately trying to convince strangers of their worth. They obsess over whether someone likes them, whether they measure up, whether they've been noticed. But none of this builds anything lasting. All it does is drain the very fuel they need to actually build a life worth noticing. Think of it this way. Every time you pour your energy into defending yourself against pointless criticism, you're stealing it away from the work that could have silenced the critics in the first place. Protecting your mental energy requires discipline. It means you have to decide what deserves your attention and what doesn't. It means you have to learn to say no to certain people, to certain conversations, to certain habits. That doesn't make you cold or selfish. It makes you wise, because the reality is you can't carry everyone's problems, you can't respond to every insult, you can't chase down every misunderstanding. If you try, you'll lose yourself in the process, and let's be honest, life is already hard enough. There will be challenges you can't avoid, work that demands your effort, family that requires your love, goals that test your perseverance. Those are worthy struggles, but when you add unnecessary battles on top of them, when you willingly hand over your peace to drama, to envy, to distractions, you're sabotaging your own future. Protecting your mental energy is about reserving your strength for the battles that count, the ones that shape who you are becoming. There's something powerful that happens when you stop bleeding energy into the wrong places. Clarity begins to emerge. You can hear your own thoughts again. You can focus. You can strategize. You begin to see the next step clearly, and then the one after that. And slowly, almost without realizing it, your life begins to move forward with momentum. Not because the world has changed, but because you're finally using your energy the way it was meant to be used, building, growing, creating. Protecting your mental energy doesn't mean hiding from the world. It means engaging with it deliberately, with strength, with focus. It means knowing that your attention is precious, and refusing to waste it on people or situations that don't align with where you're going. And if you can master that, if you can learn to guard the gates of your mind, then the distractions lose their power, the critics lose their influence, and the chaos of the world no longer dictates your path. Because the moment you truly protect your mental energy, you take back control of your life, and nothing is more powerful than that. One of the most destructive habits you can fall into is comparing yourself to other people. It might feel harmless at first. You look at what someone else has achieved, how they look, how much money they have, the life they seem to be living, and you start measuring yourself against it. But slowly, almost imperceptibly, that comparison begins to eat away at your sense of direction. Instead of being guided by your own values and goals, you're pulled into the trap of trying to measure up to someone else's story, a story that isn't even yours to begin with. And the tragedy of it all is that while you're busy obsessing over how you stack up against them, you're neglecting the one person you're supposed to be competing with, the person you were yesterday. Comparison is seductive because it gives the illusion of clarity. It feels like you're setting a standard, a target to aim for. But in reality, it often paralyzes you. You see someone miles ahead of you, and instead of being inspired, you feel crushed. You see their highlight reel on social media and forget that behind the curtain, they're struggling with their own hidden battles, just like you are. You convince yourself that they have it all figured out while you're the only one stumbling, but that's a lie. And the more you believe it, the more you rob yourself of progress because you're wasting the energy you could be using to move forward on your own path. Think about how much time people lose staring sideways. They worry about who's doing better, who's moving faster, who seems happier, who looks stronger, who's earning more. And while they're staring at everyone else, their own work sits unfinished. Their own potential gathers dust. Their own opportunities pass by. That's the cruel irony of comparison. While you're obsessing over someone else's journey, you're abandoning your own. You're not building, you're not improving, you're not advancing. You're simply watching, and watching never changes your life. The truth is, progress isn't about measuring up to others. It's about building consistency with yourself. Did you wake up today a little stronger than you were yesterday? Did you push yourself a little further, even in something small? Did you keep your word to yourself when no one else was watching? That's progress, and those tiny steps taken day after day eventually compound into something extraordinary. But you'll never see it if you're too busy comparing your chapter 2 with someone else's chapter 20. When you fixate on others, you surrender your own pace, and life isn't about racing ahead. It's about moving steadily forward. It doesn't matter if it takes you longer. It doesn't matter if your path looks different. It doesn't matter if no one else claps for you along the way. What matters is that you don't stop, because when you keep going, you eventually discover that you're not even running the same race as anyone else. You're running your own, and that's the only race that truly counts. It's not easy to silence the urge to compare. It's woven deep into human nature, but you can train yourself to redirect that energy. Every time you feel the pull to look at someone else's progress, ask yourself one question: am I further along than I was last year, last month, last week? If the answer is yes, keep going. If the answer is no, then focus on fixing that, not on envying someone else. Because the moment you start measuring against yourself, you reclaim your power. You no longer live as a shadow of someone else's life. You live as the architect of your own. So stop letting comparison rob you of the progress you're capable of making. Your journey is yours, and no one else can walk it for you. Keep your eyes forward, your focus sharp, and your effort consistent. Because when you finally stop looking sideways, you'll discover the only person you ever needed to outdo was the person you were yesterday. Pain is unavoidable. You can't move through life without being struck by disappointment, betrayal, failure, or loss. At some point, every single one of us is going to be tested in ways we never asked for and never expected. The question is not whether pain will come at will. The real question is what you will do with it once it arrives. Will you let it hollow you out, drain you, leave you broken and bitter? Or will you decide to use it, to transform it, to turn it into a force that sharpens you, strengthens you, and drives you further than comfort ever could? There's something about suffering that reveals who you are at your core. When everything is stripped away, when life corners you and there's no escape, that's when the truth emerges. Pain doesn't ask politely if you're ready. It crashes through the door, and it demands a response. You either collapse under it, or you rise through it. And rising isn't easy. It requires you to face the very thing you wish you could avoid. But that confrontation, as brutal as it feels, is also the furnace where character is forged. Think about the moments in your life when you grew the most. Was it when everything was smooth, predictable, comfortable? Or was it when you were thrown into chaos, when you were forced to adapt, when you had no choice but to endure? Growth never happens in ease. It happens in struggle, and if you learn to embrace that, to see your pain as fuel instead of an obstacle, you'll realize that what was meant to break you can actually build you into someone unshakable. There are people who spend their whole lives running from pain. They numb themselves with distractions, with addictions, with constant noise. But you can't escape it forever. It will always find its way back. The only way forward is through. And once you've walked through the fire, once you've carried the weight, once you've endured the nights that felt unbearable, you come out with a strength that can't be faked, a depth that can't be imitated. That's the gift hidden inside suffering. It offers you a chance to become someone far greater than you were before. But you have to choose. You have to decide that your wounds won't define you, but refine you. You have to refuse to let bitterness take root, because bitterness is the poison of wasted pain. Every insult, every rejection, every failure, these can either be chains that hold you down or tools that shape you into something extraordinary. And it all depends on how you choose to frame them. Do you see them as proof that you're unworthy, or do you see them as proof that you were tested and survived? That choice determines everything. The people who rise the highest are not the ones who never fell. They're the ones who fell hard, who hit the ground, who tasted the bitterness of defeat and still stood back up. And when they stood, they carried with them a resilience that no comfort could have given them. They transformed their pain into power, and that power became the very thing that set them apart. So when pain comes, and it will, don't waste it. Don't bury it, don't curse it, use it, let it fuel you. Let it remind you of your strength. Let it drive you to prove that no matter how hard life tries to break you, you will not be broken. Because when you finally learn to turn pain into power, you discover that even your deepest wounds can become the foundation of your greatest victories. Everywhere you look, distractions are waiting to pull you off course. They're disguised as entertainment, as comfort, as quick pleasures that promise relief but leave you emptier than before. Your phone buzzes, a new notification calls your name, a show drops its next episode, someone sends a message that leads nowhere. Hours disappear, days slip away, and before you know it, entire years have been stolen not by catastrophe, but by 1,000 little diversions that never seemed dangerous in the moment. That's the true enemy of greatness. It's not always failure or disaster that robs you of your potential. It's distraction. Discipline is the antidote, and it isn't glamorous. Discipline doesn't flatter you, it doesn't seduce you, it doesn't give you immediate reward. Discipline asks for sacrifice. It asks you to choose the harder path when the easier one is begging you to give in. It's waking up when the bed feels too warm, pushing forward when your body begs for comfort, staying focused when everything around you invites you to drift. But here's the paradox. The very thing that feels restrictive is the only thing that sets you free. Because when you are disciplined, you are no longer a prisoner of impulse, no longer a servant to the whims of every fleeting desire. You are in control. Without discipline, your dreams remain fantasies. You can want a better life, you can imagine success, you can talk about change. But unless you can direct your actions consistently, none of it becomes real. Distraction feeds on weakness, and it grows every time you surrender to it. But discipline starves it. Every time you say no to the trivial, you're saying yes to the essential. Every time you resist the pull of immediate gratification, you strengthen the muscle that builds long-term fulfillment. Think about the difference between someone who lives by distraction and someone who lives by discipline. The distracted person drifts, pulled in 100 directions, always busy but never truly productive. Their days are full, but their life is empty. The disciplined person, on the other hand, might not look as busy, but every action is intentional. Every hour is an investment. They're building, brick by brick, towards something greater. And though it's slower than the quick dopamine hit of distraction, it leads to results that last, results that matter. And make no mistake, it's not that disciplined people never feel the pull of distraction. They feel it just as much as anyone else. The difference is that they've decided their goals are worth more than their impulses. They've built habits, routines, and structures to protect their focus. They've chosen to live for something larger than comfort, and that choice, repeated daily, eventually compounds into a life of strength, achievement, and purpose. You have to ask yourself, what is distraction stealing from you? How many books have you not read? How many projects have you not started? How many skills have you not mastered, simply because you let yourself drift into the arms of distraction? How many moments have you surrendered to meaningless consumption instead of creating something of value? The cost isn't small, it's your future, but here's the beauty of it, you can take it back. Every moment you choose discipline, you reclaim a piece of your future that distraction was trying to steal. And over time, those choices shape you into someone who cannot be easily swayed, someone whose life carries weight, someone who doesn't just exist but thrives. Because in the end, it's simple. If you let distractions rule you, you'll waste your life. But if you master discipline, you'll create a life worth living. And that is the only life worth fighting for. Every meaningful life begins with a vision that others cannot see. It's fragile at first, barely formed, more like a whisper than a command. And when you share it with people, they'll often laugh, dismiss it, or warn you to be realistic. Not because they're cruel, but because they can't see what you see. They don't feel the pull inside your chest that keeps you awake at night. They don't understand why you'd risk comfort, why you'd step away from the well-worn path, why you'd chase something uncertain when the ordinary is always available. That vision belongs to you, and because it belongs to you, only you can carry it forward. The mistake too many people make is waiting for others to validate their dream before they act on it. They wait for support, for applause, for permission. But visions are not collective. They are deeply personal. You cannot expect the world to believe in a future that hasn't been built yet. At best, they'll call it unlikely. At worst, they'll call it impossible. But impossibility is only the name people give to something they haven't seen achieved. History is full of stories that prove this. Every great invention, every breakthrough, every revolution began as a thought that no one else believed in. If the people who carried those visions had waited for universal approval, nothing would exist. That's the challenge you face. Can you hold on to a future no one else sees? Can you wake up day after day and put in the work, even when no one claps, no one notices, and no one understands? Because that's the price of building something extraordinary. You will often feel alone. You will doubt yourself. You will wonder if it's worth it. And yet, if the vision is real, it will keep calling you back. That's the sign it's worth pursuing, not that it's easy, not that others approve, but that it refuses to leave you alone. There's a deep responsibility in carrying a vision. It means you are the steward of something fragile, something that could die if neglected. And it also means you are the only one who can nurture it into reality. You have to feed it with discipline, protect it from distractions, and guard it from the constant noise of critics. Most people will never understand the sacrifices you make for it. They'll see you say no to comforts, to pleasures, to easy choices, and they'll think you're strange. But what they don't see is that you're investing in a tomorrow only you can imagine. And here's the beauty. Once you've built it, once the future you saw becomes visible, everyone else suddenly understands. The same people who doubted will call you lucky. The same people who dismissed you will admire you. But by then, it won't matter, because you'll know the truth. It wasn't luck, and it wasn't their approval that made it happen. It was your persistence, your willingness to hold on when no one else did. This is why you must never trade your vision for their acceptance. Their approval is fleeting, but your future is forever. Build the life only you can see, protect it, nurture it, and fight for it, even when you're the only one who believes it's possible. Because the greatest tragedy isn't failing at something difficult. It's abandoning the very future you were meant to create because others couldn't see it. So trust that vision, follow it relentlessly, and when the world finally catches up, you'll know it was worth every sacrifice because you didn't just build a life, you built the future you were born to live. At the heart of it all, life is too short to live under the weight of other people's judgments, too precious to waste on comparison, too important to scatter across distractions that steal your strength. The voices of critics will always be there. The temptation to look sideways will always exist, and the comfort of giving in will always whisper in your ear. But none of that builds anything lasting. What builds a life of meaning is the choice to focus on your growth, your discipline, your vision, your future. It's the courage to turn pain into fuel, to silence the noise, to guard your mind, and to walk a path that only you can walk. So ignore them. Ignore the chatter, the envy, the doubt. Focus on yourself, on who you are becoming, on the future you are building, on the life that only you can create. Because in the end, that is the only way to rise above the noise and live a life that truly matters.